want to thank the Bachwick community for engaging so much with us, and my own team, Tom, Bill, Robert, Richard, Gorf, who have done multiple meetings multiple times with various stakeholders. And we're very happy to do that. So you can see at the local level, we partner with a number of local cities, counties, non-governmental organizations, as you can see on this slide. Next slide, please. At the state and national levels, we collaborate with the State Water Board, the California Department of Transportation, DF&G, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Toxic Substances, US EPA, and with a number of partners. This slide is only a snapshot of a number of partners that we collaborate at both the state and national level. We recognize that effective collaboration is more important than ever as we face new challenges such as climate change adaptation, sea level rise, racial equity, and environmental justice. Next slide, please. So I want to briefly just give you an overview of the strategic work plan, and I invite you to go to our website later today, not now, later today or next week to take a look at our strategic work plan. And first, I want to give credit. I worked with the leadership team, and this document, we had no consultant do it. I give our cover to one of our engineering geologists. My graphic artist was one of our geologists, Demir Worthington, and Maggie Monahan worked closely with me in developing it with our managers. So this was zero budget document, basically. So I'm really proud of what we did. You kind of take what you need to. For anybody who watches Abbott Elementary School, it's kind of, you got to make what you can with what you have. But it was important to me that we communicate the great work that the staff of the Water Board do. And then it communicates our priorities. And in the back part, we have tables that talks about our performance measures for the next 2 years. Next slide, thank you. And first, I want to talk about the organizational priorities, kind of like Greg was mentioning with their strategic work plan, the organizational priorities. And we have 3 organizational priorities that permeate all the programs we do at the Water Board. And the first one is climate action and advancing our climate action initiatives. Second, we want to advance racial equity and environmental justice. And third, we want to workforce plan and develop. As we look at our workforce, we want to make sure that we're investing in them. They're critical, they're what gets the work done, it's the passion they bring, and so we need to make sure that we're investing in them as the science changes, whether it's climate change science or any new thing regarding PFAS that you heard about earlier. So those are 3 organizational priorities. And then next slide, we basically have a water quality programs. If you think about the work we do at the Water Board, it can be broken down into 4 categories. We plan and assess, we regulate, we manage cleanup, and we enforce. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of these programs, and you can kind of see from the pictures on the slide what they entail. But now I want to talk briefly about climate change. So we continue next, yeah, thank you, you're so good. You know when to change. So we continue to incorporate climate actions into our program activities and to utilize our authority to advance climate action adaptation planning, coordination, technical assistance, and permitting. And we recognize that addressing climate change is critical for the long-term protection of water quality. And this slide just shows many of the partners we're working with in the Bay Area to advance climate adaptation. We're working with a number of partners, BCDC, Caltrans, MTC, on a Highway 37 project. We're working on an MOU with BCDC, Caltrans, MTC, and a number of agencies where we're committing to working together to address climate change. We know it's a regional problem and requires a regional solution. Next slide is I just want to give you one example. For this last year, we adopted an amendment to waste discharge requirements that requires 16 bayfront landfills, and it requires them to identify long-term flood protection strategies by evaluating the potential and predicted impacts of climate change, especially around groundwater rise, sea level rise, and extreme climate events based on the latest state guidance and emerging science. Next slide, please. And then another thing that we've done is we've created our staff a map of areas that are potentially vulnerable to the effects of sea level rise and groundwater rise, and they've overlaid our cleanup sites And then on top of that, they've overlaid the disadvantaged communities. So then they're prioritizing sites that are in disadvantaged communities and that are subject to sea level rise. So that's just an example of how we're incorporating climate action into our work at the Water Board. Next slide. As I said, apart from water being such an important resource for us, really the most important resource we have at the Water Board is our talented team that we have. So it's important that we invest in them. And we do a lot of internal training. Tom Mully continues to share his knowledge and puts on Water Board 101. He's got another one next week. It's great. People who've even taken it before say they learn every time they take it. Tom has a wealth of knowledge that he shares with everyone at the Water Board. We also have a real culture of sharing information and sharing different people's technical expertise. We also have a racial equity and recruiting team that works collaboratively to identify how we can go out and recruit a diverse pool of candidates so that as we continue to grow our team at the Water Board, it reflects the population of the Bay Area. Thank you. Next slide. And then on racial equity and environmental justice, this last September, we put together a racial equity and environmental justice action plan, and it focuses on the communities that experience environmental racism or environmental injustice. And once again, we don't have a team. We don't have any staff dedicated to this. So this is just something that people are incorporating into their day-to-day work at the Water Board. Next slide. And really what it's about is really, one, identifying the communities, engaging with them, and engaging with them really is going out and listening to them. And maybe one example is the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. We've been very engaged with that community. The 5th five-year review from the Navy was published just a few months ago. We provided comments this month. And we're meeting with the community to hear what their concerns are. And it's, multi-generational we're hearing about the high cancer rates, their concerns, how they feel, they've really been left high and dry. No fault of maybe anybody, but there was, for those who didn't follow, there was fraudulent samples and stuff that happened many years ago with a consultant that I'm not going to name in case anybody works for them here in the room. But it's really just listening to them, making sure that they feel heard, and then telling them what we can do. And it's not like we always have the answer, but they bring up air issues. I have my counterparts at the Air Board. I have my counterparts at EPA that we've been engaging with. I have my counterparts at DTSC, and they really appreciate that because they're confused. We have our counterparts at the city that we work with. So that's just kind of an example of how we work with our disadvantaged communities, and then we make sure we prioritize, and sometimes it's educating them. Sometimes they have these ideas that aren't factually based, and when we come out and explain to them, they're very grateful. And then we work with them to tell them about the different job opportunities because we're looking to hire a diverse team at the Water Board. Next slide, please. And then, once again, I'm just going to highlight a little bit about our 4 programs that I said that our water quality programs are divided into. Next slide. And there's a detail on each one of these in our strategic work plan. So basically under plan and assess, I think you all know, but even though some of you seem like you might be new today, is that we adopt plans and policies to carry out the federal and state water quality protection laws. And the plans and policies contain water quality standards and regulations which form the basis of our regulatory actions for protecting the quality of the state waters. So we don't get to just do what we want. I know some of you think with our collaborative relationship, oh, we can do this or that with a nutrient permit, but our hands are tied. We work closely with EPA. We have to work under the Clean Water Act. Next slide. Under plan and assess, I think you're all familiar with the 2022 harmful algae bloom, but I also want to acknowledge BACWA working on the nutrient management strategy for the last many years. BACWA has contributed over $15 million in the last 8 years to the monitoring, modeling, the studies, and being active at the table. So I just want to recognize that partnership is really a model, I think, for the rest of the state and how we work together. Next slide. And this whole watershed approach that we are doing the joint fact-finding, as I said, there's that whole group, Lorian and others are involved with, Amit, Eric, Tom Munley, Robert, Richard. that are looking at the modeling, working with Dave Sin and SFEI. It's the joint fact-finding on the science. And then our goal, which is I think the goal of BACWA, is that we come up with practical regulations, practical timeframes. We can't expect you overnight to reduce nutrient loads. So just want to take the opportunity once again to say we really value our relationship with the BACWA community. Next slide. Under Regulate, our regulatory programs include wastewater and stormwater programs, our creeks, wetlands, bay habitat protection programs, land disposal programs, and our agriculture land programs. I guess you're surprised that we do more than wastewater, because you are, most important, of course, to us. And this next slide just gives you a snapshot. As you can see, I wanted to give you a flavor. Last year, we completed over 200 permitting actions and inspected 400 facilities this past fiscal year. So if you think about 200 permitting actions, we spend a lot of time because the nutrients is important. As Greg says, it's very expensive to the Bay Area, and our goal is to get it right. And next slide is recycled water. And I just want to say that we continue to engage in collaborative efforts that promote increased use of recycled water in support of the governor's August 2022 water supply resilience portfolio. And we appreciated the opportunity to coordinate with BACWA to convene the stakeholders for a workshop here last September. And the workshop focused on enhancing interagency collaboration for Bay Area water reuse. I also want to recognize, I think the Bay Area is well poised to discuss potential recycled water collaboration opportunities, thanks to the 2023 BACWA report that identified the opportunities here in the Bay Area for the wastewater agencies to reduce their nutrient loads through recycled water. I really feel like that report really puts the Bay Area ahead of other regions in the state, and it's a great document to have. So thank you for that. And then next, there is other work we do. We do partner with the 79 municipal agencies within the Bay Area, and we engage with them on our municipal stormwater permittees and other stakeholders to reduce stormwater pollution. And won't spend much time on that, but something else we do work on. And then next slide, cleanup. With our cleanup program, we direct and oversee cleanup of contaminated sites throughout the Bay Area from former industrial activities, leaking underground petroleum tanks, and other leaky chemical spills or leaks. And then next slide just gives you a snapshot of kind of a table you'll see in the back of our strategic plan, just for the cleanup program, what our performance measures are. So we're trying to be transparent to the public so you know what we are working on and what our goals are for particular programs. And then next slide, something that was mentioned earlier was PFAS investigation. So we continue to monitor for contamination of emerging concern, and an evolving and expanding part of our cleanup program is the PFAS investigation. This map was produced by our staff, and it shows the sites that have been sampled for PFAS. And we continue our work by following up on PFAS orders issued by the State Water Board and advancing our ongoing investigations of military sites and evaluating cleanup options. We're also partnering with Bay Area water agencies, particularly down in the Livermore Valley, where they have PFAS in their groundwater supply wells, which is part of their portfolio for providing drinking water. So we're working very collaboratively with them to share the information we have, and they share with us. So it's really about collaboration. And then next on enforcement. And I just want to say, with regard to enforcement, we pursue violations in a fair, consistent manner, but we're not out there to collect fines. We're not trying to get money for, the cleanup and abatement fund. What we really want to do is just get the discharger to achieve compliance. That's what it's all about. It's not about collecting fines. We're not like the police who want to give you a speeding ticket. We just want you to do the right thing. And then next slide, just in summary, we track our progress throughout the year. We report our outcomes. We post it on our website. And as I mentioned, we use it for community outreach. And I'm hoping as we reflect back next year that we'll have a third nutrient watershed permit that we all feel good about, or at least most of us, as we work to reduce nutrients in San Francisco Bay. And then finally, my last slide, the next slide, is just, I wanted to show, this is the talented team we have at the Water Board that are very passionate. I feel so lucky to work with them, that come to work every day, or they work from home, but they're very excited about achieving our mission and just the diversity of the water board team and their many talents. As I mentioned, geologists being our graphic artists. It's amazing the talents I see, some of the things, the videos Richard Looker has prepared. It adds to the richness of the organization and the results that we can deliver to the public. So with that, thank you, and I invite you to look at our strategic work plan. And I try to filibuster a bit so there wasn't too much time for questions on nutrients.